Welcome to another episode of Something to Say with Avi Solomon. We just did an episode where we discussed certain things about the political environment with the current nomination of Amy Barrett, and we also discussed the issue of mail-in ballots. Today, or I would like to focus on a different issue. It's also political and it's also a little personal, which is the question of masks, whether people should have to wear masks, not wear masks. Now, I'll tell you like this. I'm not going to be so bold to say there's no scientific evidence that masks protect. What I will say is that for sure I believe, before coronavirus, everyone in hospitals wore masks. So there must be some type of scientific evidence that certain types of masks, I'm not sure, maybe the medical type of masks, which might be more expensive to manufacture, that those might protect. And it could be that the ones that most people are wearing, these little flabby blue ones, that those just don't do the trick. But in the end of the day, what I will say is so sad is that no one has the honesty to say the real truth about COVID-19, which is no one knows. The doctors don't know, the scientists don't know, the rabbis don't know, the politicians don't know. No one really understands this virus. No one understands if the average mask that someone wears actually protects you from the virus or protects you from germs. I saw a video as recent as yesterday. Someone took an e-cigarette and blew smoke through the mask, and that was trying to show that the mask does not protect at all. Now, again, it claims that the vapor particles that came out when he blew the smoke are the same size as particles that would come out when you talk like I'm talking right now. And his conclusion was, therefore, and he did try a medical mask, and he said, you see, by this certain medical mask, it works. But most of the other masks did not work. They did not protect the person who, according to this example, they did not protect the person from getting germs, and they did not stop the person from spreading the germs. So there is a question whether masks work. And then the question becomes even more so if someone like Dr. Fauci, who's supposed to be an expert, how is it he's so confident that any type of mask will work? Now, let's look at the honesty of Dr. Fauci for a second. Dr. Fauci, in the beginning, said masks, people don't need masks. Then he said people do need masks. And when they said, well, why did you say people didn't need masks right away? He said, I lied. He openly said, I lied. And Dr. Fauci, let's be honest, if this guy was saying, I'm a doctor and I'm sticking to my field and I'm not letting the fame get to my head, but he's been doing the rounds on any news outlet that'll allow him. He's been taking offers to throw out the first pitch at a baseball game, which then he was later caught at that baseball game not wearing a mask. The answer, I think, is that no one knows. No one knows if masks, when I say masks, I mean the average regular masks that people are wearing. Most people are not wearing professional medical masks. No one knows if these masks that most people are being able to buy are doing anything. And they just want to push it. And why? Because this way, at least they have an answer. It's true, masks did become politicized. But in the end of the day, I am a religious person by nature, and I do believe that ultimately that this COVID-19 was sent by God. And therefore, if you want to look to how to get rid of it, you have to turn to God to see what does God want from me? Why did God send this in the first place? What does he want to see us do for him to take it away? Now, the real truth is, God has had tremendous mercy with this COVID-19 on the entire world, because anyone who knows the Spanish flu of 1918, how many people did that kill? That did a little bit more than COVID-19. That killed 1% of the human population. I think what was the number? 15 million people died? 15 million people died from the Spanish flu. And it was much more deadlier than COVID-19. I don't know if it was more contagious, definitely more deadlier, and people died in a much more gruesome fashion, to my understanding. I read a book just recently called The Great Influenza. It did not seem like a pretty thing. So the question here, number one, is, and again, I'm a religious person, so I take it that everything that happens ultimately happens because God decreed it. And therefore, if you don't believe in God, I don't expect you to accept that premise. But let's talk about shuls, or synagogues, where a lot of them are all of a sudden pushing masks heavily. You have to wear a mask. You have to wear a mask. You can't come in if you don't wear a mask. Well, I have a question. Who sent? First of all, are you sure that these masks do anything? We have seen certain doctors. Now, granted, the majority of doctors say you should wear masks. We have seen certain doctors say that masks are not effective. And the real truth is, what happens is you distract people. If you tell them that masks will save you, you distract them from the idea that they have to turn to God and they have to say, why did God bring this? And what can I do to try and uproot that, to cause God to make this disappear, like he made the Spanish flu disappear. And naturally, even things pandemics, God, I believe, this is my own personal belief, God does it through working through nature. When the world comes to a position where they're going against the will of God, how does God react? This is completely my own theory. He doesn't magically bring into the world a new thing to a certain extent. What does he do? He simply removes his protection. He removes to a little level his involvement. And the natural tendency of the world is that people occasionally get killed off in dozens and in more than dozens by pandemics. Pandemics are a natural part of the human condition. They've happened throughout history, and most of the times God makes sure that they don't happen. And even when he allowed COVID-19 to happen, it had a certain amount of mercy to it, because it could have been much more deadlier. But when you tell your congregants, wear a mask, wear a mask, wear a mask. No, don't worry about God. Just wear a mask. So are you doing them the favor? Are you being honest with them? What are you accomplishing as a leader of your congregation? Now, the hypocrisy is much more. If you're in these synagogues, I'll tell you one thing that's not going on. There's not social distancing going on. A lot of, social distancing is 6 feet apart. There is not 6 feet going on in a lot of these places. And on top of that, at the end of the Shabbos or the holiday services, a lot of the rabbis are letting everyone get into a line, no social distancing, and letting them wish the rabbi a good Shabbos or a good Yom Tov, as it's called. So that's a contradiction. So you're saying people can't come into the synagogue or the shul without a mask, but at the same time, you have no problem with them squishing together. You have no problem with them getting in line to greet the rabbi at the end of the services. So what does the mask really accomplish? What does it accomplish? If there's no social distancing, there's no making people wear gloves, that's another thing. Last time I checked, this virus supposedly can be spread through touching. But no, gloves were not making people. Why aren't we making people wear gloves? So on some level, masks is just to say I have an answer. Yeah, masks are the answer. Don't worry about God. Don't worry about masks will solve this. If we all just wear masks. And the politicians are doing this too, because there has to be someone to blame. There has to be someone to turn to. Now, right now they're using Trump. But trust me, if Trump gets booted out, they need to turn to some masks. Wear masks and you'll be good. Wear masks. Oh, the masks failed us. Wasn't the politician that failed you. It was the mask that failed you. So I think that I'm not saying masks that definitively are not helpful. I think there is a certain amount of dishonesty in trying to paint it that masks are the solution. It takes away from, or if it doesn't take away, it for sure distracts that God brought this into the world for a reason, and until we respond the way he wants to respond, who says that he's going to remove it? Everything he does is with mercy. There has been a tremendous amount of mercy with COVID-19, even though people have died, and it's very sad, but it could have been much worse. The Spanish flu was much worse. There have been other pandemics that were much worse. So I'm not trying to take away from the horrific and the death toll and the sadness of this virus. But, the Holocaust was a very sad and tragic thing. Very sad and tragic. And if you're a religious person, you tend to have to believe that God, on some level, allowed the Holocaust to happen. And we don't know the answers for these things, but part of God, Judaism believes that God is the source of all good, and He's the source of all evil, as we understand it to be evil. That we understand the Holocaust to be evil, and God is the source of that. And if you try and distract people with saying it's masks, it's something else, it's very counterproductive. And it would be one thing if it was masks and social distancing and no greeting the rabbi at the end of the services, and it was consistent. But the fact that it's not consistent makes me believe that masks are merely an excuse. They are merely an excuse, and then the reality of this thing is that it distracts us from turning to God and understanding how to really get rid of this COVID-19. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Something to Say with Avi Solomon. Have a great day.